Hey, good one, and welcome to Friday Morning Conversations. You are watching World Bible School Media, and this is Dr. Bill, and we're glad to have you. Listen, each week on this broadcast, we bring you teachings or concepts which are beyond what is often considered normal in Christian conversation, so that we can discover more of the eternal Christ who is within us, even from before the foundation of the universe. Back with me for the conclusion of this series, Apostle Brian Christian. My brother, how are you this morning?
I am doing very well. It's good to be here, and I just love our time together.
It's so much fun and
Yes.
and definitely enlightening. Real quickly, I want to put the website uh, Father of Global Ministry.org. This is Apostle Brian's website. And then also, I want to give you the link for his book, and I think you've got another one that you're getting ready to put out. Um, but
Hmm.
anyway, here's the link to his book,
Still
The
looking for a
Everlasting Life.
title.
Waiting for a title. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you never know what might pop up during these broadcasts.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we've been talking about infinite, in-FINITE. And while both
Yes.
words are spelled the same except with a hyphen, it took me when Apostle Brian told me this title, I was like, okay, like I don't get it, but infinite, in-FINITE, I get it. So
Yeah.
anyway, today we may look at the practical aspects of the mind of what infinite and in-FINITE actually is, and more. But to get it started this morning, I want to read a scripture from two different translations, and then we'll have Apostle Brian chime in here and talk about this. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12, should be coming up on your screen right now in Facebook. The King James Version, I went with this to start with, says, "For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known." And then I love the Passion Translation of the same verse. It says, "For now we see let me get this set here. For now we see but a faint reflection of riddles and mysteries as though reflected in a mirror, but one day we will see face to face." Again, this is a word in the first century, a word even before the New Testament was written. And it says, "My understanding is incomplete now, but one day I will understand everything just as everything about me has been fully understood." So this really spoke to me about what we've been talking about, the mind, how to see perspectives from 3D or 5D, a conscious a level of consciousness, and so many times what my wife and I have discovered, and Dr. Faye is watching this morning, I think Shauna is watching this morning as well, and others that are already in the chat room are watching according to the numbers. One of the things that my wife and I have talked about is people who are unwilling to go beyond what they've established as far as a doctrinal view, such as I'll say this: my mom is deceased, but my mom, one time I tried to give her scripture and talk to her, and she said, "I was raised old time Pentecostal, and I believe what I believe, and that's where I'm going to stay." Well, no discredit to my mom, she operated on the level that she was able to operate in. But my point is this: sometimes people can see through a 2D glass and refuse to see beyond that because it looks so good and it looks so clear that they literally will not go any further. They won't go beyond 2D and 3D and even beyond. So take us where you want to go this morning. Chime in with this or whatever's on your heart today.
Well, you know what's beautiful about how all of this works is when we see that when you're awake in the 5D and you're seeing people that are resistant in the 2D, the 3D, however you want to put it, just realize that there is no resistance there. That I know that sounds like, what do you mean? Are you ignoring the resistance? No, you're realizing the structures of the matrix that are being utilized in the form of people in another dimension that are mirroring back to you the proof of your ascension. And so, you know, one of the things that I think we want everybody to come along, and that's true. But when everybody is one, no one is missing, even though one might be lagging behind, because that which is lagging is simply bringing a point of contact for a realization of whatever is being aligned within you, whatever is being tested within you, whatever is being extracted, settled, established. That's what everybody represents. So you can have people that are thorns in your flesh, and all they can do is cause grace to be revealed where you couldn't see it before. Okay. And that's the 5D posture, to where actually everything is working together for good. And what's amazing is and I remember it's not too long ago, about a year ago, I was delivered from the savior complex, you know, where I needed to be the savior. You know, and we don't know we're doing that, but we think we got to get everybody to see and feel what we see and feel. And I remember when I had this encounter where I saw God, and all I could really see was the outline, and he was clothed with all of these different garments that almost look like fur coats overlapping each other. And he's like huge. He's like the size of the universe. And as soon as he drops the garment off, he's invisible. He's gone. Can't see anything. And all you discern is this kind of, I call it the love soup. It's the frequency of dreamy love and bliss known as God, that has no visibility, no expression, and no tangible touch. And the ancients talk about God that looks like nothing, because nothing can be compared because he's invisible. And I look at this and I go, well, what were the garments you were wearing? And he says, oh, that was all the religions of the world. And I said, okay, so you're delivered now. You know, my thought is, oh, he cast off the religions of the world. You know, we're coming out of all that. And then afterwards, he put them back on. And I said, why are you putting those back on? And he said, you know, you all think that you came here to find a truth. And he says, and you'll find a truth that's a truth for now that leads to another truth that unveils another truth. But he says, but what was really the whole point of the truth that you thought you were getting? And I said, well, what? He goes, well, it was for an interaction. It's for a face-to-face. It's for a bonding. It's for an interaction. It's to know one another, not know the truth you're trying to get one another to know. But it's a truth that causes us to know one another, not trying to get each other to know the truth we're trying to get them to know. And so, you know, to know as you have been, you know, fully known, right? As it says in First Corinthians 13. And I said, well, I thought we were here to get truth. He goes, why does the spirit of truth, as one spirit in humanity, come to look out that which it already has? It came to express that which it's always been. And that expression is about a reuniting and a bonding and you know, an intricate, visible expression and embrace of that which has been invisible in what I call the dream soup of love. So you know, no matter what people are, where they're at, when you truly you've been settled in your identity, and truth is not something you conclude on as a box that you can fit divinity into as an arrival, but more of, I'm in a present truth, I'm embracing it, but I'm holding loosely what I think I know so that it can expand beyond what I can currently comprehend, and let it be a place in which we vibrate together in a symphony of love and interaction, which is the whole purpose of the human experience. And so we didn't come here to fulfill a destiny, even though we have destiny being fulfilled. We came here to express the adventure of visibility as God, embracing himself on every possible facet, direction, way, and expression, you know, and it's an adventure. It's a holy experiment, and it's a holy adventure. And I think when we see that, we're no longer wondering why this person isn't jumping on board. And what's great about this is when somebody doesn't jump on board with where we're at and they're resistant, What does it do for you? Well, it reveals where we're still trying to believe 5D from a 3D mind, wherever we need to do something, to be something, to prove something, to somebody else. All of these aspects of inner frustration and turmoil is the memory loop of the 3D coming subject to the 5D that we are awakening in. And so there isn't one thing that isn't working outside of the sovereignty of unconditional love.
Yeah, yeah. When we have no need to prove anything to
Yes.
anyone except just to reflect who we are based on the revelation we've received,
Yes.
that's an awesome place to be. And the thing is this, that the scripture we just read said that there's a faint reflection of riddles and mysteries
Yes.
as though reflected in a mirror. Uh, this word mysteries, I really thought about this. It's the Greek word enigma. It's equal to our English word enigma, and it's defined as a person or thing that is mysterious, puzzling, or difficult to understand. And I think that's why we need to condition ourselves to see
Mhm.
beyond the 2D and 3D, especially when attempting to understand supernatural concepts. Because remember, the scripture said that well, let me just pull it up here and read it. This is from I think this was the next one. Um, yeah, just give me a moment here.
No worries.
Yes, yes, actually, this is the one I was talking about. This is in First Corinthians. Boy, I've got it. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so um, this is First Corinthians 2, verse 11. The New King James says, "For what man knows the things of a man except the spirit of the man which is in him? Even so, no one knows the things of God except for the Spirit of God." The Passion Translation says, "After all, who can really see into a person's heart and know his hidden impulses except for a person's spirit? So it is with God. His thoughts and secrets are only fully understood by his spirit, the Spirit of God." And so, I love that in that we don't have to know a person's heart and hidden impulses, but just the person's spirit. In other words,
Yes.
if we understand that people are the creation of God, and even though I may not understand all their outward resistances or embraces, it's really not necessary for me to go beyond that. Just be who I am and live the revelation that I have. I was
Yes.
in terms of what you were talking about. I was thinking about the many different interpretations and variations of what constitutes 3D and 5D thinking, which is why I think it's important to approach these concepts with an open mind and a critical perspective. What I mean is not criticism, but just
Yes.
really surveying, really thinking things through. And when you begin to see deeper, and I try to make my shows not just about my input, but about what my guests have experienced. And so I was thinking about, as you begin to see beyond. Most people are I think uh, purposely choose to see 2D and even 3D,
Mhm.
but they get stuck in this. It's just like the moves of God we've seen over the earth in the past
Yes.
100, 200 years. People see something and they stop there. They build a religion or they build a denomination. I'm not criticizing denominations. I understand the need for unity and common a common mind among people, but they'll camp there, and
Mhm.
when God does something else, as He's trying to bring us, as He's trying to condition
Yes.
us toward His mind, and He'll do something, and we refuse to move to that or to see that deeper level because we're really happy with where we are, we're comfortable there, and we
Yes.
just don't want to go past that. And so again, I know we've been talking about this a lot, but I think the level in which people understand the supernatural realm of God is determined by the knowledge that we can experience at the moment. And for me, I got hungry. I got hungry to step outside the box, to go beyond everything that people said the box was. not to
Yes.
prove that people were wrong, but just to prove that there was more. I just got hungry for more several years back, and I began to look into some places that some people theologically would not look into, but I was just hungry. I
Right.
remember one time I bought this stack of books. A pastor was leaving his church, a Presbyterian pastor, and I bought this stack of books, and he said, "This stack of books is on the Holy Spirit." And he says, "Not bad for a Presbyterian, huh?" And I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. One of those was called The Kingdom of God. Now, I don't share my library. In the past, when I really relied on a library, I didn't share my library with people because I had a lot of things in it that were not of my camp.
Yeah.
And so I was not trying to offend, but I was just trying to stretch myself.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we understand that we're only limited by the knowledge that we have, such as Peter said, you know, hey, we have all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of Jesus Christ, through the knowledge of the Christ mind. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it makes
we
complete
really
sense.
need to stretch beyond our
True.
own experiences of our knowledge so that we can really understand the supernatural realm.
You know, you bring to my mind a vision my wife had, which you got to get her on the program one of these times.
Yes.
She's on fire. But she talked about seeing all these little boxes of God. And from one side, it was like, we need to break out of the box. But from another side, it was like, aren't these boxes beautiful? Look at the diversity. And so what we have is we have the one side of the of where we're still separated within ourselves. And a lot of the lie of separation is not a theological fix. We can fix it theologically. I mean, I know plenty of ministries and churches that are oneness that operate just as divided as any other religious denomination. Um, and and that's because they're claiming oneness intellectually, but their experience of life has been separation, and they haven't dealt with some of the, mindsets, perceptions, emotional pain, trauma, the triggers, and so a lot of our triggers is what causes us to be fearful of the unknown or to persecute what we don't understand when it comes to like moves of God. And this is why every previous move of God persecuted the next move of God. And this has been historical. It's happening today. I won't name names, but there are well-knowns out there that are full inclusion that are persecuting the very things I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay, you believe in oneness, but you can't go this far. Now, at one point, it frustrated me. Well, why can't they see it? And then I realized, well, why am I frustrated? What is it in me that needs to prove something to someone else, which means it's something I'm trying to prove to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing that mirror reflection, being able to utilize everything that is at our disposal to actually line up with that perfect peace and rest in which we're operating from a place of dominion, authority, grace, and rest, um, is everything that appears to be thwarting it. So everything in your life that appears to be resisting you is simply resisting who you're not, but where you've settled for and who you're not, what you've believed wrong about yourself, to reveal who you truly are. And the power of the truth is in the pudding, because we claim God is this, God is this, I am this in him, I am that in him. And that's great
Right,
when you're
right.
on the mountaintop and everything's working out great for you, because you can't really prove that any of that is true. you know but when
Yeah.
you have nothing to hang on to and everything seems to be interrupting the very thing you've been pursuing in your dream, in your vision, in your purpose, and it seems like everything's trying to stop it, it's our own self-sabotage at a deeper emotional historical level that is secretly sabotaging us, and the outward realm is there to confirm what the inward intention is doing or needs to be aligned in. And so I tend to look at everybody in 5D, I tend to look at everybody as mirror reflections of my own internal dialogue. And so, and now you've got two sides of this. You've got that which is mirroring you, and you've got that which is quantumly entangled. Because there are times, your mind's renewed, you're not operating in that mindset, and somebody else is, and they're projecting at you. so that you don't have to take it as, oh, they're mirroring me, unless you are triggered by it. The trigger really is the indicator. Oh, if I'm triggered by what this person's doing, okay, they're mirroring a belief about me that I need to look at. All right. But
Yeah.
if they are projecting their own stuff, and I'm not offended by it, I'm not moved by it, I now become the mere reflection of who they truly are, looking back at them to choose whether they want to hold on to this separatist mindset, being fearful of not understanding what is not known, and I think that's where the biggest fear is if I can't understand it, I'm afraid of it. And
Right.
why are we afraid of it? And it comes down to the fact that we're afraid of what we can't figure out because we've relied upon our ego as our security, not divinity. And so the ego requires understanding in order to feel secure. But what does it say in the scriptures? That the peace of God that surpasses all understanding
Right.
will keep
Right.
your mind and your heart in Christ, or the realization that you cannot be separated now releases you from the obligation to understand what is yet to be revealed. And that's what it means to fellowship with the mystery. You defined mystery earlier, and Paul says the fellowship with the mystery. And so many a times we don't understand that mysteries come in many forms. And so a mystery is when you have believed for something and you have all this confirmation, revelation, and then you enter a situation that looks the opposite and it's silent and you don't know what to do and you don't have understanding and you feel like I got to make a decision or else. To relinquish that egoic temptation is to come to the place where understanding is not required for you to fulfill everything you were sent to manifest. This is why many a times we get hindsight, and we think, oh, God's saying this, and we jump out, and by the time we're done, we're like, yeah, wasn't what I thought it was this instead.
Exactly.
And we go, okay, why didn't I see it? Why am I so dense? I need to discern more. I need to gain understanding. And all we do is puff up in knowledge, when this journey is to do away with our need to protect ourselves with knowledge and simply have the embrace of love. So whenever we're traumatized, we enter flight or fight mode as children. Okay. We learn to repress, we learn to file pain away, and we learn to find a way to avoid it. Okay. And so that flight or fight mode always stirs up the need for facts, the need to understand, and the need to figure things out. That's my protection when I'm on my own. Survivors have to figure it out because they're on their own. Okay. But whenever somebody releases something that is beyond, your paradigm, and you can't figure it out, the divine temptation, and I like this because I call it the divine temptation because it really is a hook from God to invite you to try to figure it out. And that invitation exhausts your ability to measure up in what you thought you should have known. And that's where the slate begins to become clear, in which we now consider an ulterior viewpoint and our conclusion begins to crumble. And that's the place of embrace. It's where you're seeking first the kingdom and everything is added to you. And
Yeah.
in other words, everything you need to know when you need to know it is given to you. And this has been the foundation to me moving in a continual flow of the revelatory as a divine encounter, rather than as textbook doctrine, but as an experience of God, as the life force of God, being seen in and through one another. And to be able to manifest that atmosphere is because I drink and I don't think. I choose not to try to figure. I simply rest and transfigure. Because if I try to figure, I'm going to disfigure. I'm going to lose the shape of my embrace of love. I'm going to lose that structure that can constantly upgrade if it wants to, and so now what's the great thing when people resist your freedom? Back to that, The great thing is it proves that you're free. In fact, you can't even prove you have freedom unless there is a dummy test of it to prove it can't fall apart. And so when you're put in a situation of resistance, or the 3D opposing your 5D reality, realize it's simply there as your deliverer to align you and to uphold you and to help you to see everything you've been claiming is actually true.
You know, when we talk, and I know some of these concepts are different or strange to people, but
Yeah.
for those that it might seem strange to, we teach that we are the reflection of God. We are all made and reflected
Yes.
or mirrored from our Creator.
Yeah.
Now, if that's true in the realm of spirit or as spirit beings, then how I look at someone and I see their faults, I see their shortcomings, that can trigger things in me that I may have, hidden away
Yes.
that I really don't agree with, but I'm seeing it in somebody else, and so it just really triggers us. That's why it's very important to see people in the same way they are as spirit. They're the reflection of God, and that's that divine interaction. What you call the divine temptation, I think that I think I refer to that as a divine setup.
Sure. Oh
Because
yeah. Oh yeah.
God's setting you up, and when I'm searching out revelation and the hidden truths beyond even the original language to try to discover the intent, the original intent of Father, then there always some type of a set up, some type of a hook to draw me in to the deeper, and that
Yes.
based on past theological conclusions can trigger you even in that respect. I wanted,
That's
since this is our
definitely.
last broadcast in this series, I wanted to just ask you something. When we talk about laying the movie aside for a moment,
Mhm.
but when you refer to Matrix,
Yes.
the Matrix, is that the realm of spirit? What are you talking about when you talk about the Matrix?
Well, the matrix is ultimately spirit, but the matrix is also can become the structures of the visible reduced to the physical as our ultimate reality. So it becomes the structures in which you build your whole identity on your culture, on your past,
Okay.
on the physical, on the labels, on what others say you are and are not. It's everything that we think stabilizes us in the physical realm as our security. Okay. And so when somebody's reality is being ripped away, and this is kind of like, well, just like death, when we hear the term, oh, somebody died, well, we know death is an illusion, right?
Hmm.
So what is really going on when somebody has an ego death experience? Well, that's really the death that we're talking about. And it's the ripping away of the structures of what I believe life and truth is, who I am, the ripping away of everything that I've concluded who I am. And it's when we're entangled in that and it needs to be ripped away, that to me is the matrix that we need to wake up from. But yet, the structures in of themselves of visibility is actually the side of the matrix, which would be the multidimensional state that really allows the infinite to embrace itself in the finite, that allows the masculine to have somewhere to give itself into the feminine. So, like the divine masculine is the infinite, is the invisible. The divine feminine is the finite and the visible. Okay. That's why we're the bride. That's why we're the wife. And that's why the woman was formed out of the man. And the man Adam there is ATOM. If you look at it that way, atom, it's basically God coming into his own visibility to
Yeah.
express and interact with himself in the multiplicity of his diversity. And so it is a mystery. I will say that. Um, you know, uh, and the good thing is we don't have to figure it out. We can just embrace it. We can just encounter that and see how deep we can go into the wonder and the awe of how beautiful this is, you know. But, you know, ultimately, you know, when the matrix has you and you're plugged into the matrix, you're asleep. You're asleep. You know, I can tell when somebody's asleep because I can come in and I can spend 5 minutes with them just sharing revelation and you know, the flow of the eternal, and they just kind of look at me like you're crazy. You know, now some of them, many of them will say, I witness to what you're saying, but I can't even tell you what you said, or I can't figure out what you said. And I said, well, that means it's a revelation because it's beyond your ability to figure out. If the ego cannot comprehend it, you know, there's something there to help the ego transition, right? And come into renewal. And so they'll get it in their spirit, but they can't comprehend it with their minds. And what'll happen is, over a period of time, they will start seeing a shifting in their life to where they begin to encounter what was spoken, kind of bleeding through their reality in signs and symbols that eventually become plain speech in which they just break through and comprehend it. And so you know, we're not waking up from the dream. Okay, we're waking up within the dream. To wake up from the dream is to do away with visibility. Visibility is the dream. It's known as the temporal realm, but temporal is not based in time either. Okay, you know, temporal just simply means it is not the ultimate substance of the full 100% divine infinite being known as God, but yet the expression and the interaction of that ultimate being of divinity called God in every possible way of embrace. And so, you know, and I love the fact that, you know, we have diversity, because everybody's always trying to be the same, you know, and that's when, you know, the matrix has you. It's the culture that clones you. And yet our diversity is one of our greatest assets, because we're not redundant. There's no cheap copy of one another. There are only originals. You know, what you carry, nobody else carries, even though we're all one. And everybody gets to feel special. Everybody gets to know that they're center stage in the Father's love. And, you know, and that we got that one-on-one. So we have that one-on-one, but we need one another in that one-on-one. And, you know, and so I know I kind of got off there a little bit, but the matrix to me is just simply where Jesus said, you've got to lose your life to find it. And it's letting go of everything that's kept you trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to beat the system, trying to overcome, trying to get a breakthrough. That's all matrix. And the very matrix is there to crush that mentality, so you can actually wake up to the fact that you were never bound, you were never messed up, you were never broken, because you actually never were. But yet we still put on the script and the movie known as The Matrix to live it out in every possible scenario, because we're indestructible divinity that could never be touched or tainted through it, but could simply experience expression.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the purpose of movies like that we watch. It helps, if we pay attention. It helps give us a spiritual awakening or understanding to a deeper truth, and I'm grateful for things like that. And so my wife saw an article this morning on Newsbreak that said scientists believe that you'll soon be able to live with your loved ones even when you die. You know, I'm so glad that death is not the limitation that we operate by. A lot of people believe that everything that God is, everything that God has, I will experience once I die, waiting to become that which they were created to be, but only once they die. So, in other words, the belief of being visible and returning to invisibility, now I achieve perfection and completeness and understand all the mysteries of God. Yet, the scriptures we've read today that are really based on having a full understanding of God, but yet they saw their limitations in the first century. We do need to understand that even scriptures are limited by the century in which they had a revelation. Here we are in the 21st century. Our revelation of what God was intending to say should be much deeper and more consistent with truth. I read an article from Subconscious Servant .com, and it says, what is 5D consciousness? Now, I wanted to just touch on this. We may not be able to get through all of this, and I want to definitely talk about anything and everything in the remainder of time we have that's on your heart or mind. But it says some of the characteristics of the consciousness make up 5D are. And the first one they give is oneness. Now, I'm grateful for this article, not because I agree or disagree, and I'm not going to start posting disclaimers. The views of my guest or the articles I read may not be the views of World Bible School Media. That's really degrading
Yeah,
and
it is.
condescending. But oneness, it says when in 5D we live with the deepest knowing that we are connected to everything and that everything that exists is ultimate of the same source energy. Now, when
Yes.
we talk about energy, we talk about the frequency and all of that, these vibrations that are what you're calling the matrix,
Yes.
that I might see as basically God's universe, just
Yes.
everything that God is really important that I understand what it means to be one with my Creator. But that also is not just looking at this picture, this glowing picture of God in a white robe and white hair and a beard, etc. And I know that's really not the true image of God. But
Yeah.
it's not just that. It's understanding that everything that birthed forth from God, I am one with.
Yes.
So I could easily say that I am one with all things. It's
Yes.
just a matter of my perspective. Am I going to look at this from a 2D or a 3D religious perspective and stay put there? Or am I going to allow myself to expand into a higher consciousness? I know that's an Eastern phrase, but it's still a true phrase.
Yes.
And so, am I really going to allow myself, my consciousness, to expand to a higher level of 5D and beyond, so I
Yes.
can see this thing about oneness and harmony and unity and all the beautiful things that God has birthed forth from Himself? I think that's a good place to start on this.
Yeah, I do too, and I think when we're talking about, again, back to the matrix is exactly what you said. But what we've done is we've misunderstood what we're experiencing as less than what it really is through that
Absolutely.
holistic perspective. And again, duality is not evil
Hmm.
in and of itself, because without when you see the yin and the yang, for instance, I seen this video with this guy by the name of Alan Watts, really amazing guy. And he has this wheel, and it's the yin and the yang, the white and the black. And
Right,
it looks
right.
like two snakes. And he spins it and he says, now, which one's going to eat the other one first? We're all rooting for the white snake, right? We want to get rid of that black snake. We don't want darkness. We don't want duality. But the moment you take the dark snake out, the white one cannot be seen. And so it's actually the contrast that once you remove one side, the other appears non-existent. And so this
Right.
mirror reflection that we're in a 3D that feels like duality, is only because of the twisted imagery of our own belief system in the way in which we perceive ourselves. And
Right.
so to the degree you perceive yourself is going to be the degree you perceive God, you perceive your world, all of that. And so um, once we untangle from a wrong perception of ourself in our matrix, we now move from duality to polarity. And polarity is actually what's going on. And polarity is basically the harness for allness. It's the harness for allness, or that which directs energy for a purpose.
Hmm.
And so God is all energy, and all energy, and energy never dies. It changes form as it recycles itself. And so we're constantly being changed into the same image from glory to glory as we go from season to season, which is energy recycling itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there are multiple levels of form that we're just now tapping into. I mean, you could say that when Jesus was on the Mount of Transfiguration, he went from the 3D mindset of the Son of Man's going to suffer to a transfigured state of a glorified 5D in which he set his face to Jerusalem to where he'd be taken up. The whole perception changed, and they begin to experience it even visibly, at least in their minds. We don't know to what degree, if they were having an open vision, if it was some physical manifestation. But you notice how easy it is we get caught up, and this is another side note, we get caught up on the physical visible, that we need a physical visible manifestation. And that's how we know we're stuck in the matrix. We need a sign. We need an outward sign. I just did a video yesterday on the Luciferists as I was deconstructing Satan, demons, and Lucifer. And it's always the same question or the same stand that people have against the concept that the demonic are not separate entities, but are projections of our own belief system. Is that, but I seen a demon manifest. What'd you see? I saw somebody flopping on the ground, or I saw somebody scream in 3 different voices. Okay. So does the kingdom come by observation? No. So what are you experiencing outside of yourself? Nothing.
Right.
You're not experiencing one thing outside of yourself. There is nothing. I don't care how much you can touch the computer in front of you. There is nothing there. That is the illusion. Now, do we deny everything we're experiencing? No. We participate, we partake, but we don't allow our identity to get wrapped up in what is appearing visibly in front of us to define us.
That's right.
And so for me, that becomes the key. Is we're coming into a place, into an era, and the age of Aquarius. We've been talking about it. We were in the car the other day, and I decided to put that song on, the age of Aquarius. And if you haven't heard it for a while, I encourage people to listen, because it's very, everything that's being spoken in there is really about what's being spoken today. Mystic crystal revelations and the mind to liberation, Aquarius. But what's also a trip is our friend Lynn Joyful, which you should have her come on as well at some point. She's amazing. She's one of our team family members, whatever you want to call them. And she says, "Do you know who wrote that song, Aquarius?" And I said, "Who?" And she goes, "The Fifth Dimension." That's the name of the group. And I'm sitting here looking at, we're in the year of Aquarius, or the time of Aquarius, and we're now talking 5D, and we're seeing this parallel of whispers. Now we would look and go, oh, confirmation. But what if we encoded those whispers? What if we encoded those whispers before dreaming about the matrix? Okay. What if we encoded a lot of the things we call signs, wonders, and confirmations, and that we were a part of designing it, being the programmer, designing ourselves as a program to help wake us up at appointed times, just by the very things we thought are now coming to us for the first time, were actually embedded by us for an appointed time. And I tend to think we are a lot more involved in everything we're receiving in our visible human experience from an eternal place than we can even comprehend.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I want to touch back before I go on to the next one, which you've already mentioned. I don't think you did it purposely, but
Oh, did
it
I
just
already
happens to
mention?
be yeah. Um, but before I do, I wanted to talk a moment about yin and yang,
Yeah.
um, because let me see if I can do this here. And I don't have a good picture of this, but I'm going to do this anyway. Um, So the
Yeah,
yin
there
and
we are.
yang, yeah, and it's just a small picture that I have, but um, yeah, okay. So anyway, that's just the symbol. But
Yes.
I wanted to share that the words here, I looked up the symbolic meaning of yin and
Mhm.
yang. It's think balance, not
Yeah.
conflict. So
Yes.
within us, there's this push to do good, to do evil, which we should be resting in the tree of life, but we do have that struggle, that the conflict between soul and spirit, and so it says think. So I think our focus needs to be balance, not conflict. It says in short, the
Yes.
yin yang has come to symbolically represent the constant path of uniting opposites and the pursuit of seeking balance in life. That's true within
It
myself.
is.
Okay,
It's true.
that there needs to be balance. But one of the things we do is we don't see that or strive for that balance when it comes to other people. And
Yes.
so what happens is there's a confliction in our thinking, and we're in this state of conflict and confusion. That was the thing when Adam embraced, when he ate from the fruit of another mindset. He
Yeah.
became confused, he became conflicted within himself, and duality was birthed forth. Now, one of the things that I'm looking at in this article is called non-duality. It says 5D
Yes.
consciousness includes the awareness and integration of a subtle and deep understanding that all experiences are of the same source. A deeper
Yes.
understanding of the and I forgot to put this up on the screen. Let me do that real quick for everybody to get a picture of this if you need to.
Yes.
But it says a deeper understanding of the perspective of experiences and behaviors is usually considered as good or bad, light or dark, or beneficial or non-beneficial. And I think that's true, that how we look
Yeah.
at things, we put a label on it, and
Yeah.
that label limits our ability to see beyond this established 3D perspective that we have on about everything. And
Yeah.
so to expand our understanding, we've got to move from this a state of duality and confliction within ourselves into a place of non-duality, which is no
Yes.
separation.
Yes.
Everything is exactly as I mean. Can you imagine here today? For me, I have gone from trying not to view anything of the flesh or of the natural realm, and I'm trying to view everything from a Genesis 1 perspective, that God illuminated me with his mind, that he created me in
Yes.
his image and likeness to reflect him, and that he gave me authority over all the works of his hands. And get this, day 7, he rested. He
That's
ceased
right.
from all his labors, and he hands the baton to his creation. Now, you can
Yes.
say God's in control, and that's a cliche. You can say God's in control till you're blue in the face, but the fact is that God created all things, and then he
Yes.
put you in control.
That's right.
So where do we go with that?
Well, we decide what world we want to create. And and so you have that which is all God, that which is the structure of God, and you have also you that is in that same energy and structure, but you are operating in a completely different expression than, if I could say it, the slice of divinity that's kind of set the whole thing up, like Genesis 1, right? And so we have that which is the mind of God in the totality of all things and the knowing of all things. And then
Mhm.
we have us, that we have an unction to know all things, but we only know what we need to know when we need to know it. And it's almost like a slowed down echo of that which is already the totality of. And so as a man thinks, so is he. And so we have been given dominion. I was talking to some people yesterday about this. We can look at, I mean, and I tell people this, you can try all you want to believe something different than what you've experienced, and you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to strive, because your mind will only allow you to believe what you've experienced,
Mhm.
because your faith rests in your experience, not your knowledge of faith, or
Mhm.
your definition of faith, right? And so, like I tell people, if you've had loss in your life in the past and it's been your experience of poverty, and you're claiming my God shall supply my every need, and you lose your job tomorrow, what you feel in that loss is what you actually believe, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's and that sounds sad, but there is something you can do, and that is quit running from that and actually embrace it. So everything you think is there to kill you in your life, embrace it. Because wherever we run from it, it's not wisdom, it's fear. It's us not wanting to face a part of us that is hidden in that situation. And so when we can face ourselves on all sides, then everything becomes beneficial, everything becomes profitable, and everything becomes balanced. And this is where we start to create, or shall I say, unveil the remembrance of everything that has been created in God. Many have taken the Genesis account as an outward visible building of trees and mountains and seas and fish and birds and all of that. But it's actually the building of the dimensions of the dream state within visibility that reduced itself through duality as biological, physical. And that's where we struggle with sickness and disease, and we have to drag ourselves through space and time. Now all of that was simply creating a shadow so that substance could actually be seen. So it's again the silhouette that allows depth, that allows formation, that allows all of that comes through it. And so it's so much deeper, but you're getting some, so I want you to share what just hit you.
Well, you talked about the shadow, and
Yes.
I think what the shadow actually is a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about
Yeah.
that. God reflected himself, and guess who he manifested? Us. So when God looks in the
Yes.
mirror, he sees his creation as himself.
That's
So
right.
what am I seeing? What reflection or shadow am I releasing? Because when I think of us as spirit made visible, in terms of Philippians says Jesus came in the appearance of man, or he manifested as the appearance of man. The appearance is the reflection. It's the
Yes.
shadow. Now think about this. What we're reflecting sometimes is confusion, is
Mm-hmm.
darkness, is sickness, is poverty. We're reflecting all the things we actually don't believe in. And
That's right.
so I've lately been meditating on this, and that's that. Uh, Thessalonians says that we're to keep ourselves complete as spirit, soul, and body as
Yes.
one. So that's
Yes.
one being, spirit, soul, and body. It's
Yes.
not the physical body we see, but what we're
Yes.
seeing is the projection of another entity. That's the mind of flesh. Flesh,
Yes.
sarx, that which is without divine influence. So we become the divine influence that casts a shadow that's constantly changing the mind of flesh perception. So now we're seeing beyond the 3D, and we're seeing in the 5D, in 6D, and etc. Now, in as I mentioned this article, and then I want you to bring us to a conclusion today about the characteristics of the consciousness that make up 5D. There were 5 things. I only mentioned a couple, but here's the number 5: unconditional love.
Oh,
The
I love it.
foundation of 5D consciousness is the experiencing and embodiment of unconditional love, living in love from within and experiencing it all around us.
Yes.
It says living in love is a state of consciousness, not just as a feeling. 5D is also associated with an open and balanced heart chakra, which we will discuss in a further article. And I didn't get to that
Yeah.
part of the article, but the point is that the ultimate, the climax of
Yes.
everything we're able to see as far as the characteristics of a 5D consciousness, it has the culmination has to be unconditional love. And man, I'll
Yes.
tell you, Apostle, you know that World Bible School University was founded on Father's unconditional love for his creation. But to
Yes.
actually walk in it, to say it is one thing, but to walk in it, that's a different story.
Well, I'll tell you, unconditional love, and this is where it kind of sums it all up, because there can't be any accidents if unconditional love is the framework of the matrix. There can't be any slip ups. There can't be any mess ups. There can't be any falling from grace. Okay.
Yeah.
So unconditional love is actually then becomes the whole reason we're having this experience of life. And so conflict becomes unconditional love. Resistance becomes unconditional love. Now, it might not be in the mind of the one that is projecting it at you or what have you. They might be living in a lie that they're not unconditional love. Okay. But for you, everything they do against you actually becomes profitable to you, and it no longer negatively affects you, and you're not entangled in it. You're upheld by it. And so I think when we're dealing with unconditional love is to realize that even duality becomes unconditional love, even ego becomes unconditional love. All of it actually becomes unconditional love because there's a purpose in journeying through it all in this expression, in this, what I call this, the cosmic joke or the holy sitcom that God created for himself. Okay. And it is crazy to think about, you know, it is crazy to think about. But when you think about the fact that God didn't just create something, set it in order, and man messed it up, and now he's got to come fix it. That concept is not unconditional love, because it all falls on the creator as the one with the problem. Okay. And that's not unconditional love. But unconditional love doesn't need to measure up to itself. And unconditional love has nothing to prove to itself. But
Yes.
yet unconditional love can present itself as the opposite in the mind of the one who struggles to receive it. So like the scripture in Psalms, I don't remember where it is, but David talks about it. And he says, to the pure, I will appear as pure, but to the twisted in mind, I will appear as a torturer. One says to the devious, I will appear as shrewd, but it's really to the twisted in mind, I appear as a torturer. And this is where people experience their Satan. Okay. So they experience their Satan. And we've got to understand that if you were to experience the invisibility of God, and I don't believe when you transition from this earth, you go back to invisible. I don't think we're ever going to experience that again. I think we will just move to different levels of visibility at this point. And the reason for that is because when you look at the masculine, the divine masculine, outside of the feminine, you have chaotic love that manifests as a lake of fire consuming itself. There is no structure. There is no direction because there is no expression. And without expression, there is no purpose or direction. So if you can imagine God as a mystery hidden from himself, and his own self-awareness is the visibility of himself manifest in the diversity of the many as the one. Now we're seeing the purpose of unconditional love. And so everything in our world is unconditional love. And I know people say, well, what about murder and rape and cheating and lying and stealing? We're not talking about people acting out of the wrong concept of unconditional love and missing the point, but also even their sound and what they're carrying is allowing unconditional love to break through the limits of what could be experienced of it. And because unconditional love cannot move in a realm of unconditional love. It can't be seen. It can't be realized. It can only be realized in a realm of conditions in which the contrast, which looks like duality, is actually God's own awareness of himself in another form. And so our dualistic dream that we are dreaming cannot harm us, cannot hurt us, cannot dilute us, cannot prevent us. It can only allow us to have that visibility. And so the divine feminine and the divine masculine are one. They're one. They've always been one. So visibility didn't appear, but yet we are conscious of the visible within the invisible. We are conscious of the receiving of the expression of creation as the feminine in the giving and the sending of the masculine in invisibility. Okay. And the invisibility of the masculine that gives is the consistency of divinity that never changes. It never changes, but it also is paused in that it cannot have another expression, and it goes on forever in one state without interaction. That's why it had to give itself into a motion, into a movement, into a manifestation known as the matrix, or the multidimensional state that we are experiencing, which as we discern that, we begin to upgrade into 5D. Some of these symptoms, people are having symptoms right now of 5D, and they think it's triggers too. They're having symptoms of even physical symptoms, dizziness and feeling disassociated and feeling like they're in a dream, and even levels of anxiety that are not actually anxiety, but they're picking up on the upgrade of the ascension right now, and the DNA upgrade that is going on, and that we are vibrating at such a high level right now that our whole sense of reality is shifting. It's changing. I mean, we're going to see, we're in the new heavens and the new earth. That is the 5D. It's not that it's new, it's always been.
That's right.
But it's new to our awareness right now. I mean, what if all the things we talked about, well, the Bible was written then, and time here, and generations here, and in the beginning happened, some say 7,000 years ago, others say millions of years ago, and we've got all this mapped out. And what if all of that was part of the script in the dream that's actually waking us up for it to now begin?
Yeah.
And and so there's this urgency of the now, and there's this urgency of the embrace of what it means to fall in love. And when you fall in love, I'm sure you felt this with your wife, and I'll finish here. I know with my wife, when we fell in love, we couldn't stand to be apart for a second. We couldn't breathe without each other. That first in love honeymoon phase, right? Which goes deeper and deeper, just changes form as time goes on. And but you could be, my wife and I, we'd be walking through a store, and we would just turn and look at each other in the midst of people walking everywhere, and we would just stare in each other's eyes. Time would stand still, and it was like nobody else existed but us.
Yeah.
And it was like, what just happened? Well, I just accessed eternity, because the eternal now is in the embrace of being in love. And when we can be in love with everything as our asset, as our deliverer, as the promoter of more of this unconditional love to be revealed, that's the world of the 5D, and that is what we were made for.
Yeah, and I agree. It's like my definition of prayer. Prayer is simply communication between two people in love, and
Yes.
there's a lot of those standstill moments with my wife, but there's also a lot of those standstill moments with my Creator. And I mean, it's just like things are troubling, things are going on, but time stops.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I believe that is because Peter said that one day with the Lord is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. I believe God lives in a now moment.
Yes.
When God said, "Let there be light," when God said, in essence, creation come forth. I mean, He lives in that now moment. He doesn't change His mind. He doesn't change His
Yeah.
concepts, no matter what our interpretation of the English Bible has said about He does not change or God changed from this. Forget all of that. He
Yes.
is living in a now moment. We live in linear time and we judge things differently, but we're learning to, God's slowing us down.
Yes.
Someone said this: it's not slowed down to visibility, it's slowed down to revelation.
Yeah.
We're being slowed down to revelation. And so I also believe, just to chime in with you, that it's not about returning to invisibility.
Yes.
Here's what Jesus did. Jesus manifested to his disciples after his resurrection from the grave, and he sat with them for 40 days, just proving by many, the Bible said, many infallible proofs or many infallible signs that he was alive. And what he did is he literally went into the cloud as one. Where is he? Same place I am.
Yeah.
But he became something different than Jesus the man. He
That's
became the manifested Christ, even in the earthly, the human experience. And he could eat and yet he could walk through walls. I believe he could be visible or invisible, and he practiced that even in his ministry,
Yes.
going through crowds and not being seen. And so if you don't believe that today, that's okay. You don't have to believe that. But I'm just telling you, this is another perspective, another layer of truth that you can walk in and you can
Right.
experience. And you know what? Father God has a whole new world for you that's not new at all. It's just who you've always been
Right.
and what has always been. Apostle Brian, I want to thank you so much for being on these past 3 weeks.
Thank
This
you.
has
It's
been
an
a
honor.
joy. I mean, we've
I
had
always
some fun,
enjoy our
right?
time. Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and I applaud you. Yeah, I applaud you for. I'm trying to get some side effects to work. There we go. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
I like
we
that. That's
appreciate you.
cool. Thank
And
you.
I did already contact your wife, and we're planning a Friday series as soon as we can get some dates together. I've got that pretty
Wonderful.
booked in. But yeah, yeah, I think we're going to talk about dreams and visions.
Oh, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So anyway, everybody, at the beginning of this show, you can see it on the chat. I posted the link for Apostle Brian and Shauna's website. You can click there, find out a place where you can donate on the website, and you can support them, send them a one-time gift, or become a regular monthly or bi-monthly or weekly supporter. I mean, it doesn't matter. Support them every day. That would
Yeah.
work also.
Amen.
Uh, and you can also see the link where his book is on Amazon. Got another one coming out. What's this next one about? I know you don't have a title yet, but real quickly, what's
Well,
the
it's
second?
going to be along some of this stuff that I'm talking about. I was going to do one on the shift. That was the plan, but I ended up just the video series was sufficient and the workbook. So I felt like, you know what, I don't need to exhaust that. But I felt like this was going to be dealing with the mind, dealing with intention, dealing with the quantum, and it's going to be about frequencies in the 5D. And we're going to be tearing apart a lot of the structures of conclusion in this book, and it's going to be deep. It's going to be deeper than my first book, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Uh,
No, it's
it's
for meat
gonna
eaters only.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna thrust you into another dimension. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of like your first book. There was a chapter that was pretty wild about your beginning, but by the time
Yes.
you're done, it's like, wow, you
Yeah.
know. And I've sat with people like that in my younger days, and it's like everything they said was just over my head. Well, that's because I wasn't ready for it.
Yes.
But so good. So be watching for that coming out. I'm sure Apostle Brian will be advertising it on his page,
Yes.
on their website, on their YouTube channel, and so on. We love and appreciate you all. This is my last broadcast for the week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see everybody real soon. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.